my name's Sean Hagan. I own and run Left Field Farm here in Bowdoinham. And Left Field Farm is an organic vegetable farm. We grow maybe about 4 acres a year in vegetables, and we've been around for 8 years. This is the 8th year of the farm. And we sell to a CSA, about a 150 member CSA, and wholesale to stores in Brunswick, Freeport, and Portland, and restaurants, although that's kind of on hold for this year. The town of Bowdoinham particularly has been really awesome supporting the farms in the area. I mean, we have such a great local farm scene here, and I think people really appreciate that. Our CSA customers were really supportive, signing up early. The Bowdoinham Community Development Initiative was doing micro grants that supported a number of farms. We got a small one to help us set up our seedling operation, which we sell seedlings in the spring, and we set up an online system to allow people to buy direct from the farm, but that took a lot of work and more labor putting together orders individually, and so we got a micro grant to help us do that, which was great. And it's been nice to see the farms come together and support one another as well, you know, knowing that things were going to be tricky for all of us trying to figure out how to operate this year, and so it feels like we've got a lot of support from everybody else in town, figuring out new safety protocols and things like that. So it's been quite supportive. I feel pretty lucky to be in this area. In this field we have our spring brassicas. So this is broccoli, broccolini, cauliflower, cabbage, kales. So we've been harvesting off of this for a few weeks. We have another set of this mix of crops on the other side of this tunnel to keep us continuously in broccoli and kale for a little while. In our tunnels we grow peppers and tomatoes inside, just to ensure that if it is a wet year that we're going to be able to prevent some of the diseases that are prevalent in the colder climate. We'll grow heirloom tomatoes in here, and bell peppers and sweet Italian peppers, a little bit of basil, and then in our other tunnels down there we've got cherry tomatoes and more heirloom tomatoes. We do grow a fair amount of tomatoes and peppers. This is the second set of kale and broccoli, which actually looks a lot better at this point. So when we're done with that section, we'll be moving on to here. The kale is pretty close. We'll probably start switching over from that section to this, maybe next week or the week after. And then that weedy section is where we've finished up with arugula and radishes and turnips that are done for the season. That just needs to be turned in. Because this is getting kale and broccoli and such this year, it won't get those crops next year, because the flea beetles now are in this section and they love those crops. So if we were to plant those crops in this field again, they would be really bad next year. So this field, both sides of the tunnel here, will probably be summer squash and cucumbers, or it'll be lettuce and carrots and spinach. Probably tomatoes is one of our most popular, and we grow a lot of it. And I think it's one of our favorite, certainly one of my favorites. It's fun to grow, it's fun to harvest, and I love tomatoes. So I think the crops that you love, you end up taking better care of. So we probably take better care of the tomatoes than anything. So the onions are growing. Scallions, parsley at the far end of this bed. Here we have scallions, so we'll harvest the rest of these probably next week before we move into the next succession of them. So we've been harvesting off this for a couple weeks now. It's a pretty easy crop for us to grow. We started in the greenhouse by seed and then transplant the seedlings out, but you can space them quite close together. They don't need a lot of room, so you can get a lot of crop out of a small space. These are a white onion here, yellow storage onions, red storage onions are somewhere back here. So we'll harvest some of these as a fresh top onion, and then the rest will be storage for the fall. So this isn't maybe the greatest example of what we try to do, but we started to follow Six Rivers' lead, our neighbor, who does a really good job with cover cropping the paths between the plastic beds. So we put down rye or oats and clover, and this is a little bit not seeded heavily enough, but ideally the oats or rye would be heavy enough where that's going to shade out some of the weeds and then that gets mowed down when it starts to head up, and the clover takes over and kind of spreads out, and is a nice way to be feeding the soil in the section where you still have a crop. And so once this all gets turned under at the end of the crop, we've been kind of taking care of the soil in addition to getting a crop out of it. Should get cherry tomatoes starting in a few weeks. And the heirlooms we tend to grow like this, where we just do the stringing and on the weave, we call it, and we do a wall of tomatoes. It's fun to, work in here and clipping and pruning, and it's just more to do with a tomato crop than maybe a lettuce, where you just plant it and wait. We grow the basil inside as well, just to heat it up sooner. It likes warm temperatures, so there tends to be enough room to intersperse it between the cherry tomatoes until the tomatoes get quite big, and then we'll just cut out the rest of the basil. So we use kind of a CSA software at this point, where we can have all of our items listed that are ready, available on the farm. We set what the share is going to be for the week, but people can trade out items if they want. So if people want Thai basil, for example, we have it available on our store, but it's not necessarily going to be in the default share. Let's say the share is going to be broccoli, kale, lettuce, spinach, and carrots, but the customer doesn't want any kale that week. They can switch out kale for basil, for example. That's worked really well to make everybody happy, no matter what they want. This is just starting to get the scapes. The top seed head of the garlic is just starting to poke up. So once these get a little bit bigger, we'll snap these off so that the plant starts to put its energy into the bulb as opposed to the seed head, and we'll get bigger bulbs that way. So these are the scapes here, and this is what they'll curl around when they get a little bit bigger, so we'll wait till it does that, but you just pop them off like that, and this is quite tasty. Tastes like garlic. Smells very much like garlic. Pretty easy, very reliable, and the majority of the work is done in the late fall when there's not a lot else to do, which is nice. So you can kind of get it in and forget about it until it's ready to harvest. So summer squash here, and zucchini, and then cucumbers is the rest of this field. Let's see, 6 of these beds are pickling cucumbers. These are, these are like just a regular slicer. Here's one that's pickable. A little small, we'd probably give this another day, but this can be picked. So a little bit of cucumber beetle damage, but still a good cuke. That's good. We try to harvest daily so that we get uniform size. If we need to harvest every other day, we'll try to start to pick a little bit smaller so we don't get things that are too large. Cukes are quite popular. Squash is quite popular. This is probably 3 days from being ready to harvest. We'll wait till it's maybe 6 to 8 inches long. But squash grows quite quickly, and ones that are almost ready to pick, if you wait 2 days, then they're too big. So try to stay on top of it. I really love the tangible aspect of farming, that there's a physicality to the work and you can see the effects so clearly. So to be able to plant something, tend to it, watch it grow, and then harvest it and get it to someone to feed them feels quite rewarding. I feel like being able to grow food for people, to know those people, where it's going, feels very good.